Call the committee of the whole meeting to order. Tuesday, the 9th of January, 2007, right at 5:30 p.m. Councilwoman Bell is present, Vice Mayor Losner, Councilwoman Wallman, Councilwoman Garner, and Councilman Porter. Item 2A is the approval of the December 12, 2006 minutes. Is the motion for approval?
So moved.
Moved by Councilwoman Bell. Is there a second?
Second, Mayor.
Second by Councilman Porter. Any questions on the minutes? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item 2B is the revised minimum unit size within the proposed business mixed-use zoning district and resolution. I think this is Councilwoman Garner.
Mayor, this was brought forward before, and we discussed it a little bit, and there were some concerns from council about the smaller units taking over. So staff went back and kind of made a requirement there. I was comfortable with it before, but it was the will of the council at the time.
Any other comments?
Mayor, just maybe frame this a little bit more as well, that this item went before P&Z, and before P&Z considered everything in here, they wanted to get a reading from council on the sizes, and that's all really you're looking at tonight, because once you rule on that, then it will go back to P&Z to look at the rest of the elements within this particular zoning district. So, again, we're looking mainly here dealing with the sizes, which is only in the business mixed use. It's only designated for that zoning district, nowhere else in the city.
Mayor, I think last time you had requested that we get some more comparisons of what other cities, and you can see here that we will be well above most other cities.
Yeah.
May I ask a question?
Yes, Ms. Roman.
It's Ms. Kamali, this question. As I said before, I wasn't comfortable, with the efficiency sizes. I'm still concerned about 30%, allowing 30% to be 700 square feet. The comparisons that are made, do those cities take into consideration other rental units? For example, we have so many rental units throughout the city. Is that in the comparison, or is this in just their downtown use as well, or?
Yes, hi, Martin Schneider with the Island Planning Group. I was the one who came up with those comparisons. It's Martin Schneider with the Island Planning Group, and I was the one who wrote up on the comparisons. Those were the minimum size requirements citywide for all those cities. So not just in a specific area where they allowed smaller. So citywide, they allow smaller unit size. And I did not find any city anywhere in Florida that I checked that had larger minimum unit size anywhere than Homestead.
That's citywide. My concern is, and I wonder if you've done research to let us know how many of these type units already exist in our city. Because I know apartment buildings that were built years ago and duplexes that were built some time ago and have gone in and been chopped and rechopped are smaller.
Right.
And I'm just concerned how much of a percentage we already have citywide. Right. Under 1,000 square feet.
Right. No, I did not look at that issue, but I do know that the city, if any of those come in for more than 50% of a change, they would not be able to continue. They'd be non-conforming and not be able to continue with those sizes. So ideally, they would start phasing out of the smaller sizes, the ones that exist. And as we said, this is just for the one area of the city where you could have these smaller.
But I'm just really concerned about rentals, and I know how many rentals are on the market now, and it's just unbelievable. And it's not just our city, it's nationwide. I mean, I'm not saying, I don't want anybody to think it's just our city that's having problems, because it's nationwide. But it's just, we have so many rentals, and we have no control over those rentals.
as it stands, and I just see these being rentals as well. So it's like I said to somebody the other day, you know, you put the chicken or the egg first, and I'm just concerned. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Mayor.
Mr. Vice Mayor?
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to share with council and staff that I do understand the rationale for and the concept of bringing these smaller units into the downtown mixed-use designation. I'm really not, I just want everybody to know, and planning and zoning to know, that I'm not comfortable with efficiencies, and certainly not, and as the way I read this, can be up to 30% of a project, can be what I consider to be very small efficiencies. I join Ms. Waldman in my fears that it's not really going to foster affordable ownership. Certainly, there's time and place for rentals throughout the city, and I'm not comfortable with the provision for efficiencies in any manner whatsoever. Now, I want to clarify, because this is before us as a whole, and I had some other comments about height limitations and other things. So are we just going to have a discussion and some consensus to go back to P&Z, or are we actually going to move this out of the committee of the whole with a vote?
Well, I think P&Z wanted to get some insight into, and we have members here that might say this articulated better than me, what the real meaning is, but to see where you are on that part, take back to P&Z, let them look at the rest of it. So only thing tonight that the intent is to settle the issue, or to attempt to settle, or give the message back to P&Z what square footage you would be looking at.
Really, this is just some direction. We're not really going to take any action on if
this is just an element of the whole thing, and if you said, okay, we agree on this, doesn't mean that the whole zoning will pass.
Yes, we have to take it back to P&Z after you vote on it. I just wanted to mention that you can check to change the percentage to anything that you feel comfortable. We don't have to stay with 30% or 60%. You can make it whatever is comfortable to the board.
From my perspective, if committee holds a place to have a more substantive discussion on these kinds of issues rather than a council meeting, I'm not really supportive of efficiencies in any manner whatsoever. And I think we need to have some minimum mandatory number of 3 bedrooms. I mean, I can envision a young couple with one child, with a parent or grandparent living with them, that would need this sort of circumstance. And, as we're seeing in most of the apartments in Homestead, whether they're going to remain as apartments, and certainly where we've talked to people about condo conversions, we have a preponderance of 1 bedroom, relatively few 2 bedrooms in the old, as well, in the 1960s and 70s eras apartments, and the 3 bedroom units built as apartments are slim and none. And I think maybe we need to help foster that if we're going to, out of the other hand, reduce the minimum square footages. And I'd like to see some component that would have a larger unit, and I think maybe this should be expressed in terms of 1, 2, and 3 bedroom percentages rather than square footage percentages, because, correct me, a 1 bedroom and a 2 bedroom can be the same size. The enhancement for square footage only kicks in after the 3rd bedroom, so I'd be more comfortable looking at this, if we're going to express percentages, in terms of numbers of bedrooms, and size follows that rather than just size, and have a whole lot of really big 1-bedroom apartments or a lot of really small 2-bedroom apartments. I want to make sure that we're getting both ends of the spectrum. Rick, and maybe I've asked this question before, and forgive me, as things exist in the downtown district now, what is the maximum height limitation?
I think it's 70 feet or 6 stories.
So that's not adding to this at all, and I know there's been talk from time to time that maybe we need to revisit that, and certainly I wouldn't want anything that's placed along the busway to overshadow City Hall. kind of like the Capitol building is supposed to be the tallest building in Washington. I don't really know that I want to see anything overshadowing that City Hall, and maybe, if what might be appropriate maybe in the corridor behind Monsoner Park as it's built out under the master plan, or some of the things a half a block off of Chrome Avenue in the other direction, I'd like to see us look at and talk about some lower maximum heights over along the busway so that we don't overshadow a 3-story City Hall building with a 6-story residential building. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Ms. Hart.
Mayor.
Ms. Bell?
Thank you. Echoing some of the comments from our councilman, I also was concerned with the smaller size. I'm comfortable, with not necessarily mandating a certain amount of bedrooms, but I am comfortable with mandating a certain size of square footage. I don't know that I am thrilled about any efficiencies at all. But I think if there are going to be allowed, that there should be something. And I remember when this was brought to us before, there wasn't even a percentage built in here, until we requested that there be a percentage built into this. So this is good. I mean, we're coming along. I also noted in reading that there's some storage that's been required upon them, and I think that's very, very good, so that we won't see stuff hanging. If there is a balcony, hanging over balconies, that there will be storage. So that was a good element. I would recommend, though, that we would go back to P&Z and go back to the drawing board, possibly do away with the efficiencies and just do the 1-bedroom. And, I know this sounds maybe crazy, but this is a downtown mixed use. This is going to have a different use than the rest of the city. I don't think it's really appropriate or fair to compare the downtown and the downtown mixed use with the rest of the rental market in the city. I don't even think that we should be doing that. I don't think that's an appropriate comparison, especially if you look at just the rentals in the city that are just rental apartments. Almost every single one of them are income restricted, and this would be non-income restricted. But let's just really look at it, and I want to take all the emotion out of it. And you can't really count all of the homes that people bought, whether they were speculating and now they're renting, because I think people are trying to sell those now. When you're talking about pure rentals, I don't think we should be putting that equation, mixing rentals out in the community with the downtown mixed use. I think we need to keep the downtown mixed use separate, because why even have a downtown mixed use if you're not going to actually work within that? So that being said, I just want to put that back in it, but I still think to keep it nice looking, to keep it appropriate, to keep it where it's going to be not cramming people. And we have a problem in our city where a lot of our rental units are being packed with. I have an issue right now in one of the areas that I know about where they're just packing them in there. They'll pack 7 or 8 or 9 workers in there, and each one is paying rent. So that's an issue. So I am concerned not just about the bedrooms, but about the minimum square footage, and I think we need to be very, very specific that if we're going to allow something small, and I think 850 square feet, it's not that small and it's not that big, but a 1-bedroom, I mean, my first home was a 3-2, 1,250 square foot house, so in the southwest section, and we did fine there for a long, long time. But I think common sense would say, let's go to the 1-bedroom, and then then go along with the square foot, with the storage, and then bring up those percentages. Maybe it will be 20%, and the next, whatever. Bring those percentages and bring that back to us, and then I think I would be more comfortable with that. But I would like, and I know a lot of inner cities and big cities, they have loft apartments that are lovely, and they're really, really lovely apartments where you can watch them on TV as they're redesigning them. So if this was a loft style, I probably wouldn't have as difficult a time with it if it's just not enough plain old efficiency. So if you could work on that and bring it back to us, I know I would feel a little bit better. Thank you.
Any other comments?
Mayor? Along the lines of some of the things Ms. Bell was saying, downtown, I'm picturing these people, maybe they're single or they're retired, they're income restricted, they're going downstairs and taking the bus, or going down, going to walk in the neighborhood. So maybe they only need a 1-bedroom. Maybe an efficiency could also be a loft. I think there's people that will need it. And Sherry, if you could check for me about the rentals that are in the city, because I don't know that there's any more 1-bedrooms, because I had friends looking for 1-bedrooms, and maybe they didn't find any that were suitable for them. But I didn't see a lot of options for them.
I will provide you a table with all the number of the one-bedroom apartments within the
If
city.
you could get 1, 2, and 3, like what we have in the city for
I
all
will
the
do that.
apartments, just to compare.
I will do that.
But, Mr. Mayor, can I add, when you do that, Sherry, could you find out about the income restrictions? Because obviously, there are people that may not want a 3-bedroom house in a neighborhood that would really rather live in a 1-bedroom apartment, but they make too much money because of the restrictions that are on the apartments that are available here. Because they have federal guidelines that are, there's a lot of people with more money than these apartments will allow them to come in. So there's a shortfall, there's a gap somewhere here that we're not covering. And this is a step in a direction that I think we need to take a look at. If we can create some housing that would allow people, because people may want to move in and live in an apartment for 6-8 months, look at the neighborhood, find out where they want to be, but there's no place for them to go because of all the income-restricted developments that are currently out there. I don't think there's a lot of market-rate apartment-type communities.
I'll make sure to add that in too.
Okay, thank you. Excuse me. Thank you, Mary.
Thank you, Ms. Wellman.
Yes. First of all, at this point in time, you don't know who's going to be building these units, correct? Am I correct in that? You're just looking for guidance as to which way to go.
Yes.
Second of all, affordable housing, you are income restricted. You can't qualify for affordable housing unless you have an income restriction. And thirdly, I disagree. I do think we need to look at the entire city. And I'll tell you why. Anytime that our major rental markets are within walking distance to that downtown area, you have to consider that. And if you look statistically at one-bedroom units that have been for sale, and so you can verify this. One-bedroom units are very hard to sell. So that puts red flags up to me that the majority of those one-bedroom units will probably be rentals. And you have to, this is a huge decision we're making tonight. Huge. And it's something that we have to look at on the overall picture, because all the cities involved in this. You've got all the areas, and if you go down any Saturday or Sunday afternoon, you'll see people walking from the majority of the major rental areas of our city. They're not within those boundaries, but they're all there. I mean, it's very easy. It's a very easy concept. But am I right, Rick, that probably a developer would be looking on the lines of what we now call affordable housing? It's not Section 8, but it is affordable housing as far as funding goes, financing goes.
My concern is twofold. I am concerned about building many small units into the downtown such that we begin to attract what I call rotating households. 6 guys living in a one-bedroom apartment, each of them living in it 8 hours a day, and then working 8 hours, being on the streets 8 hours, and sleeping 8 hours. And 6 guys in the same apartment, and the lifestyle that ends up creating, and the problems that many people having nothing to do beyond working and sleeping sometimes create for our police department. I'm also concerned about this being in the downtown from an apartment standpoint. Like you, I don't know whether one-bedroom condos would sell downtown right now. Just don't know. But I'm really more concerned about rental than I am ownership. Is it a function of whether it's 600 square feet or 700 square feet or 900 square feet? I don't think that's the big issue. I think the big issue is how can we create the atmosphere such that these units are taken by singles, 1 person per apartment, or young marrieds, 2 people per apartment, and not 6 or 8 guys per apartment. To me, that's the issue, not whether the apartment is 600 square feet or 750 square feet. 600 may be a little too low, but that's not the critical issue to me. If we can't address the occupancy in some way, then I don't know that I'm for it.
My point.
Mayor.
I have and maybe I'm off base, but I just have a different vision as to the occupancy of the downtown area from the ones I'm familiar with. Take the Miami Lakes Main Street area, for example. Those efficiencies and one-bedrooms are so expensive that most folks that live down there are people that have a tremendous amount of wealth. I'm thinking the apartments, the efficiency in our downtown will have that similar kind of impact at some point in terms of the amenities downtown, in terms of the value that the average citizen would probably not be able to afford to live downtown because of the cost for a one-bedroom apartment in the downtown area. So I'm looking at it from a whole different ball game as far as I'm concerned, basically with the development downtown, with the new city hall, with the other amenities we're looking at, the Seminole Theater and all. I just think you're going to pay a pretty big price to live down there based on what we're going to offer at some point. And I would hope that the city would challenge any development to really do a first-class job on the development of the apartments, to the point that they're in a price range that we get the kind of community down there we'd like to see.
And maybe that could be done through development agreements rather than through codified requirements.
Mayor.
Sorry, you first.
Ms. Bell and then the Vice Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. First of all, thank you for echoing exactly my concern about packing them in. But we can take care of that with requirements. But I think we have to sit here as a council, and this is good debate, this is very good. We need to frame what do we want for this downtown. When we sit here and we talk about this and we talk about rental versus ownership, I didn't know it was an issue of whether they rented or they owned in the downtown mixed use. I thought the idea was to provide for a very nice quality style of living for people who can walk downstairs, walk to work, and live in that community. I didn't think it was rental versus ownership. So please help me and correct me if I'm wrong here. Also, when I stand by what I said, when I'm saying that you cannot include all of the rental community when you talk about downtown mixed use, because this is its specific use, specific zoning for a specific area. It's been created for this particular use. So that's what I'm saying, and I stand by that. That is a specific use created for something along this line, especially along the line of a transportation corridor. That is created for that particular use. So you must keep that separate. Now, that being said, we can still come in as a council and say, what do we want to see here? What are the sizes that we want? And I think that size does matter when you're talking about these units, but I think more than size is the covenants that you enter into when you enter into the restrictive covenants with the developers. And you say this is what, and we can be cautious as a city, we can be cautious as a council to see what goes in, who goes in, but I thought, am I missing something here? We are the council to determine what we want to see downtown, but we want to see a really nice quality. We want to see something nice. And small isn't necessarily bad as long as it's very upscale and very nice. And along the lines of what the mayor said, yet I don't want to be unrealistic, so I don't want to see 500 and 600 square foot units in there. I don't. I would like to see a minimum one bedroom. And I don't think a minimum, to totally remove the efficiencies and do a minimum one bedroom. A nice one bedroom, I think, is very, very doable, very, very affordable. And I didn't think we were talking about affordable housing either. So maybe I'm missing something, but I don't equate affordable housing to the downtown mixed use, because just the fact that they are one bedrooms and two bedrooms makes them affordable just in the fact of that size. So it wasn't necessarily affordable housing. It wasn't necessarily a conflict of ownership versus rental. It's okay to have some nice non-income restricted apartments and nice upscale apartments. So I don't see, I guess I'm not getting it from all of us, Mayor. I'm seeing a lot of inconsistencies here. We need to define as a council what do we want to see in this downtown, and the use is already defined for us. It's a downtown mixed use. So Sherry, Rick, please help me here. What's our end game there?
I personally pictured it more, as the mayor said, more like Meisner Park, more like downtown Fort Lauderdale. That is the way I saw it. We wanted more traditional downtown neighborhood. Something is pleasing to us and something that we can encourage people to buy in.
Which is what I had envisioned as well, and that's why I was very pleased that the mayor said that, because that's exactly what I'm thinking. We're not creating a slum. I'm sorry to use that word, but that's not what we're doing. I want people to get that small boxy styles out of their mind. This is a downtown mixed use along the transportation corridor. That's going to be lovely. That's going to have strict building requirements, I'm hoping. And I think that we need to define exactly that. And Sherry, continue. I'm totally agreeing with you.
We can make it work any way you want, but that's the picture that I had. I personally, myself, I was hoping we can have a nice downtown traditional neighborhood for our city.
Very good. And am I correct? It's not a problem. It's not a battle of rentals versus ownership. It's a nice upscale, high-quality rental. What's wrong with that? Nothing. I'm just trying.
The issue with the ordinance that's before you is that it doesn't promote that. It just promotes smallness. It doesn't promote quality of construction. It doesn't promote style of architecture. It doesn't promote amenities. It doesn't promote the very things that, as the mayor was saying, will create high-quality housing that's not going to rent cheap. It only creates unit size for all practical purposes.
But that's what we're here to talk about earlier, and I think there's been some consistency on maybe the removal of the efficiency size and just going to the one-bedroom size. I guess we'll see how the rest of the council feels about that, but I think that takes care of unit size. And then from there on, every step that we go, then we can have our input into the rest of it.
Mr. Vice Mayor, then Ms. Waltman.
Thank you, Mayor. Rick, I think you hit the nail on the head and really brought the issue to the forefront. As I said at the beginning of my remarks, I understand the concept and what we were trying to achieve, which is just what the mayor envisioned and what I think Ms. Bell envisioned and what Ms. Kamali envisioned. There's no question about that. I think, Rick, you hit the nail on the head that there's no carrot and stick, if you will, to create that. You're exactly right. All we're doing is saying that within this defined area, developers, you can do smaller units. And I think the concern, smaller unit, building is done on a price per square foot. Built, bought, and sold on a price per square foot. So it follows then, without those uptick in the amenities and style and so forth being there, a smaller unit typically means cheaper to build, easier to rent, or easier to sell as affordable housing. So I think, Rick, you're right on point that maybe our discussion should be generally, we're all comfortable with these minimums, maybe we'll have efficiencies, maybe we won't, but I think the real point of discussion maybe needs to be, as Mr. South suggested, is that for someone who wants to avail themselves of building these smaller units, what do you have to give us in terms of architectural and landscaping and other amenities? Is it hardwood floors and granite countertops and 11-foot ceilings? I don't know, but I think the real focus should be that what do you have to do in order to avail yourself of these smaller units so that we can have that sort of kind of housing downtown. So it seems to me we need to have some general consensus on how low are we going to go, and then have staff talk to us about developing the criteria under which you get the benefit of building the smaller unit so that we can achieve that downtown upscale, professional, artsy environment. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Ms. Waltman?
I just have a question. The area east of the busway, east of Flagler, that's all B3, correct?
Not all of it. Actually, most of it is B1 or B2.
What you have on the east side of Flagler, one block deep, or one lot deep basically, is B3. One, that first...
That major block I'm talking
right,
about.
on Flagler. Then within the rest of Pioneer Commerce Park, you have scattered B3, a B3 here, a B3 over there. But it's mainly B1 and B2, away from Flagler.
Well, back in closer to US 1.
Yes, yes.
But I'm trying to picture what kind of development is going to be there when you're looking across at some of the places that exist on Flagler, and they're not bad places. I'm not saying that, but I have visions of wonderful things as well for our city. But I'm also trying to be realistic, and as long as you have what you have there, including our power plant's right there. Everything's right there. So I'm trying to envision how you're going to sell a $200,000 or $300,000 unit when that's what you're overlooking. And I'm not trying to. I would personally, before I voted on this, I would love to just sit down, have a workshop. Let's talk about what we all envision, what we would like to envision. We all want the wonderful. We all want, the Miami Lakes. We all want that. No one's saying they don't want that, I don't think. We all want that. But I think we need to address certain things, and we need to be realistic as to what kind of development, or what would the price be for a unit. And I know Kimberly Horn is doing some evaluations on some properties that the city own, and I think that once we hear back from them, we might have a better concept as to what realistically can go in there. I know the master plan that we're doing on Losner Park, it's a different concept.
It's totally different.
Totally different concept. You cannot compare apples to apples with that. And Mr. Losner's been a part of that as well. It's different, and I think conceptually when the city hall goes in and things change. But I'd like to know the visions of our leaders in our city, and tell me what you think is going to happen to Washington Avenue. Tell me what you think is going to happen to those businesses on Flagler. Because what we set forth now, I know that people say, well, everything can be changed. But once you set forth a precedent, then that worries me. So I personally would like to sit down and either one-on-one, or I prefer to have a good, healthy debate, and let's talk about what we think.
I will just quickly say this. I suspect that on Flagler that those businesses will transition in the not too distant future. Some of them are going to be really impacted when we begin developing that piece of property we own on Flagler. If you drive down there any time of the day, you'll see a number of employees, cars, and sometimes I suspect vehicles that are parked there waiting to be worked on. That will not happen anymore, and they will not be able to park those vehicles on the street waiting repair, or those vehicles will be ticketed and towed. So some of those businesses are going to be economically impacted by what we do, and it's going to make it difficult for some of them to continue to do. They're not going to be able to continue to do the level of business they've done, because they'll have to begin doing the business that they can contain within the confines of their own property. And it may no longer be economic for some of them to remain there on a scaled-back basis. And that's just an economic fact of life. That's not trying to punish anybody or put anybody out of business, but they've been able to overextend the business they should be able to do on their own property by the largesse first of Florida East Coast Railroad, and for the last 3 years the city, in not having secured that property with a fence so that it couldn't be parked on. So some of that's just going to change because of economics. And as the property values grow, others that aren't impacted that way will begin to either change the use of their property or sell their property because it's profitable to do so.
Mayor, can I ask a question? Mr. Ford? What we're trying to do is give planning and zoning
Direction.
any kind of direction whatsoever from this council as to whether they should take up this matter. And at this particular point, you listen to the dais and everybody has, there's differences of opinion across the board. You know, the Planning and Zoning Board has really done a pretty good job in the past of flushing out a lot of issues and bringing some issues to closure prior to it ever getting to the council. And then they do a good job of cleaning things up a little bit. And then it comes to council again, and we have another shot at it to maybe clean it up again. And then at the end of the day, the process or the project is somewhat better than it was originally when it hit the Planning and Zoning Board tables. You know, for me, I think we would be short-sighted not to run this through the process or give it a chance to live before, you know, we kill it just automatically without even seeing what the Planning and Zoning Board may have in their minds, and or Rick, if you have input into how do you make the amenities such that it doesn't become, you know, the 5 men working 8 hours and sleeping 8 hours. Those are the kinds of things that seem to get worked out pretty well through the planning and zoning process. You know, because I'm interested in finding out a way to do this reasonably, and everybody has valid issues and valid arguments, but I think it certainly should be run through the Planning and Zoning Board, or go through the Planning and Zoning Board, and then if we need a workshop based on what they come out with, because they will have issues that they will clean up or address or bring to the table, separate from the ones that we've heard here tonight. But I don't know why we wouldn't at least want to let it go and ask them for their help. And that's what we're trying to do, right?
I don't think so.
I mean, because we're not passing this tonight. This just goes back to them, and then they can come up with additional restrictions or opinions or philosophies. Yes or no?
Yes, the only thing we are voting tonight, or the only thing we are discussing tonight, is the reduction of the minimum residential unit size. That's it. Everything else has to go back.
Okay, so if you're asking for whether or not we're going to go to 700 square feet minimum, it's questionable then if anybody's going to agree to it until we find out whether or not we can make the amenities such that it doesn't become a cracker box. We legislated this out after Hurricane Andrew because now they were single family. But what happened was people were coming in and they were popping in what were consider the shotgun houses. So now this is based on an apartment design or a condominium design, so you're going to not have single family 700 square foot residential.
No, this is not for single-family residential.
Okay, because we had to take that out because we had a problem with that.
Yes, this is for a specific downtown mixed use where there is going to be commercial on the bottom, residential on the top. There is a lot more to this downtown mixed use. I don't want to get into it because it's not finalized yet, so I don't want to talk about it yet until the Planning and Zoning Board approves it. So the only thing we are discussing is the minimum size of the units, and it's going to be commercial on the bottom, residential on the top.
So why do we have to decide this now? Please. Can I give you some background? This was a zoning code change for business mixed use, which will only affect the area in the downtown mixed use land use. And right now in the business mixed use area, in the downtown mixed use area, you can't do residential by the way the code is written. So it's only like commercial uses. Your B1s, I'm not sure if B2 is allowed, B1 and B1A. So what we created was a business mixed use to allow commercial to exist on the lower floors and then residential on the upper floors. And then I think there's one area or some of the side streets that aren't along Chrome, Washington, or Flagler Parkway where you could do just residential buildings, but it's a very small area. So when we brought it to P&Z, they said, that sounds great, but shouldn't we reduce the size of the minimum units to allow some of this to happen, because you're not going to get large units when you're building above a commercial business in a downtown setting.
Does that have to be 1,000 square feet now? That's the minimum?
It has to be 1,000 square feet right now. So this was a side issue that we brought to you for discussion. We were ready to come with the entire ordinance forward, but the Planning and Zoning Board wanted to get your opinion. Would it be worth dropping the minimum unit size just for this one area, just for these type of units? And if the consensus of the board is, no, let's leave it at 1,000, then we would just be bringing the entire business mixed-use ordinance ahead and not touch this. So the issue is whether you think it would be good to allow some smaller units, and I heard the option of don't allow efficiencies, but allow smaller one-bedroom units. That's a good option. And get your opinion, and then we would bring the entire thing forward.
Well, you know, when you look at the comparisons, even with the reduced size, we're still
larger than anything I've seen in the state.
So we got to be realistic about the competitive side of this thing too. And
right, we were looking for a way to incentivize someone wanting to build residential in the downtown. Right now, there is no option to do that.
Yeah.
There's just commercial.
Let me say the last part of the question. These comparisons that are here that we have in our pamphlet, now this is for single family?
These are citywide unit sizes for all those cities for single family, multi-family. No, not single family. For apartments or condos.
Okay, so this is basically comparing like to like.
Right
now we're at 1,000 and there's ranges from 400 up to.
Right. Yes.
The most is 750.
Thank you, Mayor.
Linda wanted to forward then, Ms. Waldman.
I'm through, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, thank you for the background.
You're welcome.
And I remember we've had a lot of discussion on this. And I think that the discussion is simply step one. There's a lot of steps to go, and that the staff and P&Z simply want some direction from us on council to say, how small are you willing to allow these units to be? What is your comfort level? So, and I think that's fair, and I think that's reasonable, and I think there has been good discussion. But I think that we do need to take into account that this is a specific use. And I would be comfortable, and I'm really excited about hearing what the rest of council says, but I would be far more comfortable by making the recommendation, going ahead and make a recommendation to go ahead and remove the efficiency size and stick with the minimum square footage for the one bedroom and up, and then go ahead and have P&Z come back to us with a recommendation on the percentage on that. But that would be where my comfort level would lie, and then it would still be small enough to work being above a business, but it wouldn't be so small. And I think that would be a good compromise of not being too small, but working in the downtown mixed use above retail, above a business. But like I said, this is just step one. I mean, I'm hoping that as things progress downtown, comes back before us with ideas, with designs, Mr. Stotts, you bring back to us whatever, the recommended, what you would recommend, what Ms. Kamali, what you would recommend back to us, back to P&Z, and that we would continue to have this discussion. But this is just simply step one to just get the ball rolling.
Just want to make sure I understand. So you want one bedroom at 850 square feet or 700?
The 850.
850.
That would be my comfort level. That way, it's 850 square feet. It's still a nice size, a very nice size one bedroom, but it's still not the 600 or 700 that we started out with. And that would be my comfort level. Now, I don't know where the other councilmen stand, but that would just be me personally. Then, conceptually, I think that would still work well in a downtown mixed use above businesses. So you correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that would work well. And that's the minimum. That would be the minimum, and go up from there.
I like your proposed compromise, and I like the opportunity to have the efficiency, of the flexibility of having a few percentage of the project with some efficiencies in it, because you will have some folks that would just like that space to operate under. So I would not want to limit or take out the efficiencies right now. I'd like to see some percentages of the efficiencies at the square footage you have submitted.
I have a question here.
Ms. Wellman?
Martin, did I just hear you say that one of the reasons, or the major reason, to do this, the smaller units and so forth, is an incentive to developers to come in and develop?
Yeah, because right now in the downtown, we basically have one-story retail uses.
So the more units we can give a developer, the better, well, I disagree with that. I know you're the messenger, but I just can't buy into that. And also, the 850 one-bedroom, 850 square feet, one-bedroom, I have no problem with that, but I could not agree to 30%. So I don't know how you're going to vote on this tonight, because there's so many ifs, ands, and the mayor just said he wants to keep some efficiencies. So, I mean, if I have to vote on this tonight, I'm going to vote no. So I don't know how this is going to work out.
Any other direction for the staff? I mean, it's kind of confusing. Ms. Wallman, you're saying that you would like to see reduce the number of 850 square one-bedrooms?
I have no problem with 850 square foot one-bedroom.
At what percentage? But a lower percentage?
A lower percentage. And excuse me, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Are we deciding percentage? I thought we were not.
We're not deciding anything tonight.
Are we deciding percentage?
That's what the ordinance says.
We're just recommending.
We can make it any way you want. We can take it to P&Z, so the board of P&Z can suggest some percentage.
And
you can
just to
decide
finish my thought, I have no problem with keeping some efficiencies, because I do know that there are college students, and I do know, but I understand that art, especially with Art South and the direction that it's going, I understand that, but 30% is a lot.
Take it out.
It's too much.
We can make it anything you wish.
So how can we, but how can you, and I don't mean to be disrespectful, but how can we do that sitting here when each one of us has a different point of view? And that's why I'm saying, do we need to go back to staff individually? I mean, do you need to bring forth recommendations?
We can suggest anything less. We can come back with 10%.
Or 20%.
Or 20%.
I recommend 20%.
5% efficiency.
Let me get the gavel out, Mayor. We can have an auction.
Maybe 5%.
I'll say 10% efficiencies, 20% one bedroom, and the rest two bedrooms.
That's fair.
Still staying with the 750 and the 850.
Yeah.
I like
The 7, the 850.
So, I need to get...
Deal or no deal?
I think I got it.
Hit the gavel, man. And we're not donning those little outfits.
Is that it?
Yeah.
Any other comments? Let's go on to the next item.
That show.
I'm sure it'll change once you bring it back to us.
Well, at least it's something we can...
Yeah, something we can look at.
We can live with.
How did we ever design City Hall with that kind of diversity?
I see Mr. Manager strike that 2C.
Yes, we've already ruled on that.
Okay, we did, yeah.
By mistake.
2D is the Community ID Program by Buxton.
Mr. Mayor, Council, you've seen this before. Last time we brought it up, as we started to implement this, there were some additional questions, in particular from the Algiers attorney on that, and I thought some merit to them. So what we did is we sent it back to Buxton to answer those questions. They adjusted the contract to meet those requests. They wanted some privacy. They didn't want to have a public record.
I'll move this,
Of their
Mayor.
side.
Second.
Moved by Ms.
I'll second
Wallman,
it.
second by Ms. Bell. Any further discussion on
Just
it?
ask a question real quick.
Mr. Porter?
You're not going to pay this out of your contingency, are you?
This,
Where's it going to be?
that's where it's playing right now because we didn't budget this.
How much did you put in your, never mind. You got a lot of things on the plate. Is there any place else that this can come from other than contingency?
we
This
search it,
is a
maybe
budget, this is something that has to do with council redirecting an issue on the table at budget time, and I know that everything ended up coming out of your contingency, and I think your contingency was fairly small this year, and just want to lay a little caution in the wind. We need to be careful with that as we go forward. So if there's another place that you can find it, I'd like to see it, if you could.
We'll look at that.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Porter. No further discussion, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Finance Committee, Councilwoman Bill.
Thank you, Mayor. 3A, we have bid 200624, the construction of the Harrisfield restrooms. Tab 5, award of the bid to Homestead Concrete, Mr. Manager. Tab 5.
Move the recommendation.
Second. It's been properly moved and seconded. Any comments, Mr. Manager, on that?
Just other than the initial party could not come forth with the bond.
Get it going.
So we had to go to the next. We felt it was better than rebidding it, that it may even be higher. So we decided to go with the second.
Madam Chair? I just want Kurt to publicly assure us that under the business constraints that we work under, we really don't have the ability to go back to the second place bidder and ask them to do it for something less than their proposal. It's all or nothing.
It's all competitively bid and ranked based on that competitive determination and what they put in.
Well, there's potentially another 90 or 120-day time factor in.
I'm sorry.
In rebidding, there's potentially potential for all of them to come in higher and a delay of 90 to 120 days.
And when we thought we would be breaking ground on this.
Well, at least we don't have to worry about it being under construction during the busy season of February and March that's coming up.
January.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Lawson. I agree. It was good. It was wise to go ahead and go to the second bidder, and I was actually relieved that he agreed to do it at the earlier bid price, because certainly costs have gone up. So I appreciate that. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
And the ayes carry. Bid 200706, subacquaintance canal crossing at the South Florida Water Management District Canal C-103 and Southwest 147th Avenue, tab 6.
Okay. This is the electric utility, the distribution.
I'll move it, Madam Chair. They've been on the job for a long time.
I was going to give you my monotone voice.
Second motion.
Probably moved by Councilman Porter, seconded by Mayor Warren. Any comments or questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Ayes carry. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilwoman Bill. Councilman Porter.
Thank you, Mayor. Tab 7 is the Children's Trust Service Program Partnership Grant and Resolution. These are going to be very difficult for us to discuss.
I will move this.
Second motion.
I thought it would take that long. Any other discussion?
Wonderful.
I'll move the next one.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Next tab, Mr. Lossner.
Move it.
Okay.
Second.
Thank you. That's a $100,000 grant.
These are great grants.
All in favor?
Aye.
Great.
Wait a
Wait a minute, let me call it out. Tab 9.
You don't need to.
Moved by Councilman Waldman.
Second.
Second by Ms. Garner. Any discussion? That's a 2-year, $750,000 grant. That's huge. That's huge.
That's over $1 million.
You guys do a great job. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Mr. Mayor, before we leave this particular part, I'd like to ask the staff to put together some possible, let's take a look at the way that we use the swale and the parking on the swale. I know currently we have, in a lot of parts of the city, a tremendous amount of no parking signs. And I don't know if they're worse than the cars parking or the signs there. And I'd like for us to take a look, or at least have staff bring back to council for some sort of discussion, possibly an ordinance or precluding people from parking in the swale. Currently, the police department cannot ticket for swale parking, correct me if I'm wrong. But there's no mechanism for us to ticket or stop people from parking in the swale, other than put up all those signs. Then you have the ability to ticket. I would rather us take a look at it and discuss the pros and the cons of it. So could you bring something back for us to discuss?
Yes,
see what we can do with that.
Thank you. Thank you,
Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Porter. Amanda just mentioned, those 3 grants equated about $1.1 million. And that is a significant accomplishment, Captain, so let your team know in the police department. We appreciate what you're doing, and those are dollars that are not coming out of our budget to provide some very valuable service for the community, so keep up the good work. Any business for the committee to hold, Ms. Bell? Ms. Vice Mayor?
No, thank you.
Ms. Rabin?
No, sir.
Ms. Garner?
No business, Mayor.
Mr. Porter?
All through, Mayor, thank you.
One question, Mr. Manager, on the Park of Commerce, what's the status of the 14 acres and the other, I think what one company was buying 14 of them?
The total of 18 acres,
Yeah.
2 companies, one buying 4, one buying 14.
14, yeah.
That has closed, the money's in the bank.
Good. Good.
They're doing their plans.
Very good. Very good. Any business for you, Mr. Manager?
Madam Mayor?
Okay. City Attorney's Office, any business? Thank you all very much for coming out this evening.
I almost dropped my key. I didn't realize it was important. I didn't either. After the fact, after he got the bid, after he got the job, then he announces it. He goes, I've been told there's no call center. And I'm thinking, good morning.